In this video, we're going to talk about square roots. So let's figure out what a square root is. If we take a number and multiply it by itself, or take it to the second power, we say that we are squaring this number, right? 7 squared, or 7 to the second power, and that would equal 49. Well, what's a square root? The square root, symbolized by this symbol, known as a radical, is the number that, when multiplied by itself, equals the number underneath the symbol, the radical. In other words, the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 36 would equal, well, 6 multiplied by 6 is 36, so the square root is 6. Let's take another one. How about the square root of 81 equals 9. All of these numbers, 6, 7, 9, are the square roots of the numbers 81, 49, and 36 underneath the radicals. That's what a square root is. Once again, the symbol that we use for square roots is a radical. Now, some of you may have already figured this out, but every number has two square roots. It would have a positive and a negative square root. Because, for instance, the square root of, let's see, how about we use 25? Well, the square root of 25 is both 5 and negative 5. And why is that true? Well, that's true because 5 to the second power would equal 25. And negative 5 to the second power would also equal 25. For our purposes, in this course, when we're talking about square roots here, we're only going to be talking about positive square roots. At this point, we're only going to concern ourselves with positive square roots. So let's take a look at the square root of 100. Here's just another way of thinking of it. The square root of 100, this might work for some of you, it might not, is the square root of 10 to the second power, which is just 10. Just one more way of thinking of it. All right. Now, what if I wrote something like this? If I wrote a square root symbol, and in front of that square root, I wrote a negative. Well, as some of you may recall, the negative symbol literally means the opposite of. So the question here is, what is the opposite of the square root of 9? Well, the square root of 9, of course, would be 3. But the opposite of the square root of 9 would be negative 3. And that would be how we would get a negative if we had a negative symbol outside of the radical when we were finding a square root of a number.